The absurd activity that our president has engaged in of shutting down the postal services.
What Americans see right now is mailboxes uprooted from city streets or bolted shut, equipment decommissioned and removed, packages piling up, mail undelivered because of delays, cutbacks in hours, and reductions in staffing.
The Postmaster General changing his tune after lawmakers on both sides of the aisle voiced concerns of direct impacts to mail-in ballots come November. In a statement Tuesday, Postmaster General DeJoy said delivering national election mail on time is the service's #1 priority between now and Election Day. This comes after he abruptly removed curbside mailboxes from many states for cost-cutting and efficiency measures.
Yeah, he's a fantastic man. He wants to make the post office great again. Do you ever hear the expression? He wants to make the post office great again.
In Connecticut and 33 other states, you can cite the coronavirus as a reason to vote absentee in 2020. President Trump has repeatedly said mail-in voting would compromise the integrity of the election.
People want to make sure that they feel safe, and most importantly, they don't want to be disenfranchised by the COVID pandemic.
Attorney General Tong announced he would be suing the Trump administration over the policy changes Tuesday. He tweeted he looks forward to binding the USPS's sudden change in policy in a judicial decree. He added the USPS needs to reverse previous changes as well.
Postmaster General DeJoy is going to be testifying before Congress on Friday and Monday. On Saturday, Congress is going to be voting to make sure that there's enough funding for the postal services. Taylor DiCello, Fox 61 News.
All right, Taylor, thank you. And new at 5, as Taylor just mentioned, Attorney General William Tong says Connecticut and 13 other states are suing the Trump administration over its attempts to make changes at the Postal Service. He spoke just within the last hour. Tong says President Trump admitted that he was intentionally trying to defund the Postal Service. The lawsuit claims the Trump administration failed to take steps that would be necessary to change the Postal Service. It also claims that changes in postal services have created widespread delays, instructed mail carriers to leave mail behind, and decommissioned sorting machines.
It is illegal to interfere with the mail. All of us as citizens know that. It is illegal to interfere with the Postal Service. And it's illegal and unconstitutional to interfere with the ability of states to run elections. And it would be, we all know, illegal for us to physically restrain someone from voting.
Well, the lawsuit seeks an injunction prohibiting the Trump administration from implementing any of the operational changes that have been approved by the Postmaster General.